Broadcast Bionics. Welcome to the Bionic Studio.
Hi, my name's Dan and I'd like to welcome you to this introductory video to some of the features and benefits, as well as perhaps the concepts and philosophies behind what we call the Bionic Studio. That's a whole suite of tools and technologies which deliver complete insight and control over every aspect of engagement with your listeners and audience. Whether that's traditional telephone calls, that can be POTS telephone calls, SIP, ISDN, or even here we're showing through a unique partnership with Skype, 6 Skype lines coming into the studio. We also offer integrated control over the devices, which you'll see as we route audio to those, which can include traditional IP and ISDN codecs, such as the Telos Zip1 and Zephyr. All of that, however, is combined with social media information. That's pulling information in from the artists and newsmakers, as well as your audience, and helping you to push content out to engage widely with them. So the screen behind me looks kind of busy, but this is really a traditional producer's view. And so there are separate views for talent in the studio, which can also appear on other devices such as telephones and tablets, whether you're local to the studio or remote. There are simpler views for call screeners, for social media producers, but this view gives us a little bit of everything. And as we walk you through it, hopefully you'll get a good idea about the capabilities of the system and also what the data behind the system will allow you to do, both with your content and with that insight out of the studio to help you produce and fit content for multiple purposes and multiple platforms. So here I'm looking at 6 telephone lines. These are coming in over SIP. I'm looking at 6 Skype lines, and we're able to pull up to 14 lines per Skype account and pull those in using just a single computer. So it's very efficient in engineering terms, but we're able to share that audio to allow people to call screen both Skype calls and traditional telephony calls across a number of workstations. The system is in fact entirely collaborative. So simply by logging into a single show, here we're logged in to the breakfast show, everyone logged into that same show is collaborating together, seeing the same calls, curating this same on-air queue, which is the sort of running order or log for everything other than either the music for a music station or your news production system. So here I can pull together everything from tweets and text messages to telephone calls, and this becomes the running order that everyone is able to collaborate on to get all of this content quickly and easily into the studio. And on the right hand side we have a panel which is context sensitive. So here I'll switch to my call log, where we can see that all of the calls which are entering the studio, as we capture the information to screen them to use on air, are also becoming a living log of all of that activity, both for today's program and with the full capability to search, whether that's weeks or months, to find callers who've been on air, callers who've won contests or were active on a specific topic. Before a call is even answered, you'll see I have complete access to the history of a caller which we've used before, again alongside contesting and other information, and I can see geographic information about where they're calling in from, as well as information about how frequent the call is, whether there's any warnings or alerts based on previous activity or contest winning. You can set limits for the volume of prizes or the cash value of prizes over a particular period of time and receive warnings and alerts before you even answer a call. Our database behind the system is able to capture a wide range of information, whether that's sentiment information about the call, as well as tagging calls and switching quickly between multiple topics to support different segments of a program or different topics of debate. I'm able to enter call screening information quickly and easily, and that's passed around between multiple workstations. Each login brings you just the correct telephone calls, the correct social media accounts, not just for the studio you're logged in, but for the show that you're working on. And this system is able to scale to deal with the largest networks, be that within just a single facility, dealing with multiple studios and multiple stations, or an entire national network, sharing calls and social media between multiple facilities. So after I've screened a call, it's then very, very quick and easy to drag the call and put it onto an audio device, or I can simply touch a call. And the entire system is designed to be driven either via a mouse, a touchscreen, or a keyboard. And there are loads of keyboard shortcuts to really quickly handle all of this activity. But at its simplest, if I see something ringing and I touch it, it's answered. If I touch it again, it's placed on hold. And whichever device is active for me to route it to, I can simply touch it and the audio is routed to that device. In addition to capturing extra information which will be used for the duration of the call. There's also information and alerts we can capture about that caller, and indeed we can see any potential conflict between multiple callers from a single address, or disambiguate where perhaps a caller is giving you a false name or certain false information. The computer will warn if we believe actually somebody is attempting to get round either your broadcast limitations or perhaps the limitation of a contest. So the information and control around calls is really very sophisticated. But we realized, about 6-7 years ago, that increasingly call information was also being augmented by engagement over email, SMS, and of course increasingly now social media. So we wanted to give exactly the kind of tools and technologies that had been available for our talk show engagement, but now happening to all of the social media, to provide a proper piece of broadcast equipment that's fit for both discovering and listening to social media, as well as publishing and producing not just social media posts from the studio, but shareable content from the studio of audio and video through visualization. And all of that from this same interface. So you'll see that where my call log was appearing just recently, I can switch that and see a stream of incoming messages. That's an intelligent aggregator which is pulling together Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Google+, email, SMS, etc. into one stream. And that's multiple accounts which are decided by the show that I've logged into. So the breakfast show may have a show account, the host may have a host account. I may be broadcasting networked perhaps to 2 radio stations. We're pulling in those accounts across all of those range of social media providers. I don't have to know the password or the login to any of those accounts. I'm in the studio, I'm logged into that show. It will aggregate together those accounts and present them to me in what we call the all queue. But that's just one range of the social media content which is available and useful in the studio. So you'll see down the right-hand side of the screen, I have a series of what we describe in training as radio station presets that allow you to listen to different channels of social media. So perhaps the most popular is the all queue. That's people talking about me, whether they're DMing me, whether they're commenting on a post that I've made, whether they're replying to me, or whether they're just generally mentioning me or using a hashtag which I'm monitoring. That tends to be the most popular to listen to, but by no means the only content you should remain across in the studio. Underneath here, you'll see I have a smart queue, and here we're the breakfast show for a music station. So right now we're playing a song by Lady Gaga. So our smart queue, which is currently set in music mode, has gone and found Lady Gaga's official Facebook and Twitter page. And now it will find content, be that images or other mentions. Perhaps she's announced here a sold out concert or a new concert date. That information's come to me just because I'm playing the song. And then I can very quickly, having surfaced it, use that content and put it into the on-air view. The song up next and the song following that are available to me, but if I'm not a music station, there are other modes which are really useful for discovering content. So I can go into a similar mode where I'm tracking an identity, but this time it would be a manually input identity, either around a news story we're tracking, or perhaps a guest or interview that's relevant to us in today's program. I can also put a pin in a map and pull out content from that specific geographic location. Music stations can use that for a music festival or concert, but typically used by news organizations around fire, flood, tornado, some sort of mass news event. We're able to pull social media automatically from that location. We also have a rank or VIP queue, which is able to look through all of the social media activity across the aggregators for all of the accounts which are hitting the studio. And in the case of a celebrity-driven music format like this, is able to look at the all queue, which is everybody messaging the station, which might be a really busy feed, and pull from that just those people who are either Twitter official, have more than 10,000 followers, or who are considered to be highly influential. So here we can see accounts which are Twitter official or celebrities mentioning us. So we're really never going to miss if someone from One Direction or Taylor Swift mentions your show. It's going to be in that smart VIP queue. So if you put that back to music mode, we're now playing a song by Harry Styles, so I can see here immediately some content which has come in from him, an image, and that's available to me to drop straight into the on-air queue with a click or a drag. But there's more on social media than just the news or the artists that you're playing or people talking about you. So you're able to set up some quick cues here, either around a word search. People particularly use these, say, for a Twitter list. So you can have a list of all NFL players, all Premiership football players under these keys. And these, when they're set up, are collaborative. So if a producer sets up a quick cue, it's available to the talent in the studio. So again, over either the text talkback window or over spoken talkback, you can say, okay, soccer on quick 1 or Syria on quick 2. And that can be, as I say, a Twitter list of all, say, US senators, a word search, or we can actually analyze and look at what is it our audience is talking about. And here you can begin to see some of the analytical capabilities of the system. So I can see that right now when they're talking to the studio, they're actually talking about Harry Styles, which makes sense because we're playing a Harry Styles song, but they're also talking about BTS Army, a currently popular group. And I can click inside that and see what's the topic of conversation around that. Okay, I want to engage with that. So now my quick cue number 1 is going to be tracking and allowing me to engage alongside my audience. So by looking at this mentioned analytics, I can actually join the conversation, listening to what my audience is listening to, engaging and pushing content towards that. And in this empty block down here, this is the account for a UK radio station, but under here I don't have full access to their account. I would see for the last 5,000 people who engaged with the station, I would see not what they're talking to me, we call this vertical, them down there talking to me up here, but the horizontal conversation, what are my audience talking to each other about? That's not Twitter trending, that's personalized to the people who are engaged with your radio station right now. As they speak to each other, what content are they engaged about? You can find out what it is, look inside and see what the conversation is. And if you're interested, you can stay engaged and actually have a live search around that. And the final one here, favorites, is really just the accounts that you follow and like. What would be your traditional timeline across Facebook and Twitter? So that's not people talking to you, but that's the people you like and follow speaking. So it's a whole series of radio stations, whether that's people talking about you, whether that's the artists talking about the music that you play, or the newsmakers or guests that you have involved in speech radio, and quick cues, which are particular topics or lists of individuals. Presently, perhaps the Winter Olympics, all of the athletes involved in that, we could keep across their content. That can also be a topic, however, that you've mined from your audience to discover what they're talking about, as well as just the Twitter accounts that you like and follow. All of that content appears quickly and easily in front of you. We have search tools across that as well, and it's as easy as either dragging or clicking on air to push that into the on-air queue and get that through to the studio. But of course, once you've looked across all those different topics, perhaps there's an image or perhaps there's a piece of content that you want to use, not on air in the studio, but through some other platform. So once I find a piece of content like this one, if I decide I want to put it on air, I can do that with one click, but I can also hit publish, and here I'm able to push that content out to the website, to a mobile platform, or to visualization. So our automated visualization system is able to render both lower thirds if you're talking about some content while you're on air, or is able to keep a cache of social media content which will appear next time the microphones are closed and a song is playing, to make your live stream all the more interesting and compelling. And also by making your content surface perhaps on your web page, having discovered it in the studio and not just curated it, but made sure that you've complied it, you can push that through and have stuff appearing on the website and the mobile app. And that encourages further engagement as people realize that you're going to pick up on messages that are reaching the studio and use it through all of these different surfaces that you now have available to you from the studio. So as well as looking for content, I'm able to react to content which has hit the studio. So let's find a tweet like this one, and here I'm able to respond, to reply, and to retweet across, again, any of those accounts which I have linked with this show and available from this studio. I'm also able to carry out standard call screening type functions, but this time around social media. So I can block a particular user, or if it's a campaign where some particular text is hitting the studio, I can actually block that specific or very similar messages to that coming through to the studio, either permanently or just for the next 24 hours. And that's a really powerful tool to sit on top of the level of content that you might have hitting the studio. You'll also see in here that some of these appear to be more like little 3D stacks, and they're things which have comments underneath. So this is a post we've made from our account, and then I can see comments coming back against that. And as I dip into the stream, you'll see it actually flows smoothly behind the content. So the interface is also three-dimensional with the ability to pull content from a continuously moving stream that still gives me some organic idea of how fast this is flowing, but allows me to read content. And this stream indeed automatically pauses as I scroll to make sure that I'm not fighting the stream. And then as I let go, I'm free to read that quite safely. And then in a few seconds time, you'll see that that will start to scroll behind me. So I have a really granular control over even a high volume of messages hitting the studio. And if you are fortunate enough to get mentioned or retweeted by a celebrity, then again, we'll use those 3D stacks to make sure that you don't get thousands of copies of the same tweet. We'll compress that to a stack, put it at the top of the screen. It still counts towards all of your analytics and statistics about engagement on your program, but you won't see the channel flooded. We're aware of the fact that broadcasters are engaging, sometimes with very high volumes of activity. And the analytics allow us to use that activity. So instead of being overwhelmed by a volume of messages, we turn it into actionable content for use on air, as well as insight for use in analytics and monetization by other departments. So here I can see the sentiment of the station. This is a music station, so we have positive sentiment at the moment of around about 10%. But we're not just looking at the words which are being said and the sentiment that we've mined from that information across all the different platforms we're connected to. We're also lining that information up with the context of what's happening in the studio. So this green line is an event which passed through my on-air queue. It might be a break or a contest, etc. And these little triangles underneath allow me to click in and see when the mood lifted or when the mood dropped, what song was playing or what activity was happening in the studio at that point in time. So it's information and control, but it's also context-aware insight. We can show you every time a particular song plays or an artist plays or a particular day of the week, etc., through the analytics behind the system. In the studio, we try to keep the analytics really simple and simply supporting the content. So we create for you a series of top 10s, and whether that's the top 10 most followed people by, again, this is the audience as they engage with you at this moment for today. We're looking at the topics that they're interested in. So it's up to number 1, BTS, this Korean pop group, is currently moving up to number 1. What memes, photos and topics are being retweeted amongst my audience, and also the ability to manually set up polls or votes to respond to and count particular messages or keywords, all available combined with the same screen that gives me access to contest information and liners, the call log for my callers, and all of this message activity as well. And there's one other really unique way which we're helping radio stations to engage with their audience using smart speakers. And you might want to mute your device if you have one near you while we go through this. We believe that smart speakers are a really important way that people are listening to audio differently and in fact receiving more radio in their home than they did before they got a smart speaker. But it's really changing the role of audio and our relationship with it. And voice interfaces, I think, are going to become a much larger part of smart homes. And radio, I think, has a really exciting role to play in that. So let me give you some examples. Here we have an Alexa speaker. And if I say, Alexa, tell the studio I'm happy today.
Would you like to send the following message? I'm happy today.
Yes.
Message sent.
Then Alexa has sent that, and that message has appeared immediately in the studio, and I can use that alongside other engagement. You see, we think there's a disconnect between how easy it is to consume the radio and be moved emotionally by it, and how easy it is to just quickly shout a response. To do that to a traditional radio station, I would have to go look up your telephone number, call, wait for the call to be answered, find your text number, etc. Here I can just say, Alexa, tell the studio you're making me angry.
Would you like to send the following message? You're making me angry.
Yes. And then
message sent.
You'll see how quickly that message appears in the studio, currently identified as Alexa. So let's just tell her, Alexa, tell the studio my name is Dan.
Nice to meet you, Dan.
And now all future interaction are going to come from my name. Alexa, tell the studio shouting at the radio is fun.
Would you like to send the following message? Shouting at the radio is fun.
Yes. And you'll see that
Message
message
sent.
appear in the studio. Now, we're also able to ask for additional information. Alexa, ask the studio for headlines. And that will bring me the latest news headlines.
NHS hemorrhaging.
Alexa, stop. In the voice of the station or from an RSS feed. Now, all of this is done in natural language. There's no specific right or wrong way for asking for information. And we believe there's lots of frustration that your listeners might have with information from scores, from news, from weather, from travel. Alexa, ask the studio who the guest is. There's no right way or...
Women's Hour with Jenny Murray on BBC Radio 4.
So that's BBC Radio 4 with Jenny Murray. I can find information about shows, presenters, guests, artists, music, all the information that perhaps listeners are waiting for you to repeat at home. We don't know who wants this information and when they want it. So we built a natural language way of understanding the core concepts of radio and allowing you to ask for that information as well as get responses from the studio. You can send a message directly by the studio just by shouting, "Alexa, tell the studio that's amazing."
Would you like me to tell the studio? That's amazing.
Yes.
Message sent.
So that's listening to and engaging with the audience. Obviously, you may also want to produce content from the studio, and we do have the ability to do that in several different ways. First of all, I can make a traditional Twitter post or Facebook post, which I'm able to schedule, and this system will allow me to schedule just up to 24 hours, allowing somebody in the studio to have the ability to schedule ahead of tomorrow's program. As well as scheduling, I'm able to attach images. So here I can see a photograph which I've taken, and then just quickly using the system without any external photo tools, I'm able to readily crop that image to assign a logo, to adjust the opacity of it, to size it and scale it correctly for the social media platform, crop it, and then send that directly from the system. So very quick and easy to get images and stills and use them from the studio. But one of the things we realized as we were developing this system and working on social media is that as well as listening to content coming through to the studio, it's really important and powerful to be sharing the best content, that's the best radio content, with your audience. So to that we added a visualization system which is able to automatically camera switch in the studio just by watching the live wire metering information and audio on your network to point the camera in the correct direction. And that appears up here as virtual director. So just because I've opened the microphone fader, we've automatically recorded this video clip, and all of the camera switching is happening entirely automatically. The recording is happening automatically, but then as soon as the recording finishes, you'll see we take a transcription of the text of that audio and make the video searchable and editable just by using the text. So if I happen to know that I want the word Dominic here, when I touch it, you'll hear that's the next word spoken. So I can go from the word think up here. So let's say think is going to be my in cue and believe is going to be my out cue. And now I'd like to share that piece of video to my Facebook account, to my Twitter account, to my YouTube account. So the video will automatically be cropped at those points. You can predetermine a pre-roll and a post-roll. So it means that in order to share content from the studio, all you have to do is open the microphone and start speaking. Very high quality video with artificial intelligence camera switching will occur, and that's immediately available to you as a media clip. It's also available as a searchable archive, and it's available for you to crop items from that archive just by using those text edit points. And this is not about making bad television, but about making the best moments of radio shareable. What we've noticed is incredible levels of engagement, particularly given new Facebook and other platform rules around the emotive nature and integration of that into people's conversation. So rather than generic posts about brands, content from the studio really shares well and even stands up under new page rules around brand engagement. So the best content you have for your station is made available to share either directly from the studio or can be sent and is available remotely as a searchable archive for digital and content and online teams to either produce podcasts or best of, to produce videos which are very, very quickly shareable from the studio. And the level of engagement we see around that is really exceptional. Sometimes the shows receiving 2, 3, 4 million views for shows whose live audience may measure only in the hundreds of thousands. All of that bubbles up into this production surface, which is available as a portal outside of the studio. And here I can search through my program. This is a living log of what happened, a running order where I can see the face and information about everybody who was involved in every voice break. I can see all the songs that were being played, and then I can actually drill down and even read the script of what was being said and get an analytical keyword of the tags, individuals and concepts that were being spoken about during that element. I can reach inside and get detailed information about the content. So here we've broken out who was speaking and taken that content individually down to allow me to click on a single word from a single guest and start listening from that point, or extract that individual media element from the multi-object recorder, the program bus of what was happening, or the video of what was happening at that program. I get a complete overview of my show, looking statistically about the levels of engagement. This is obviously not real data in real time. Who was involved in the show, which people and identities were mentioned, which may want me to link that content somewhere else. I can look at the level of social media activity over time and then jump to a specific place, person or thing. So I can jump to an individual and then look at everywhere this particular person has been mentioned. So here we've jumped into an identity record, and we can see, okay, I want to find everywhere else that that has been used. You'll see that all of this information is widely available across all of the different studios, all of the different shows, and then as I drill into a very specific moment in time, the computer will help me find highlights. It will detect laughter, it will detect peaks of social activity, sentiment changing, telephone lines ringing. It will automatically identify places, people and things. So when I go and look at the semantic view of my show, I can see all of the different concepts that have been used in that program, and even how many times individual people or places have been mentioned. And this creates a persona fingerprint of your audience and a topic fingerprint of the content, which allows you to do peer recommendation. If you like this show, you'll also like this one. It creates radio into a searchable, linkable document, which is really our intent for this. So as well as providing the most incredible archive tool to make your radio searchable and discoverable internally, we believe that by taking radio and converting radio from a spoken document into a metadata document automatically, tagging and segmenting, creating and identifying individuals, radio becomes just as searchable as all of the other content on the internet. If you think about it, radio is a spoken document. By transcribing that accurately, by pulling all of the concepts and data about what happened in the studio, what was played in the studio, who was involved, recognizing their face, what we do is we unpack that document and create a searchable document fit for the internet. That's all the internet is, a series of searchable, linkable documents. And now your content will appear in Google searches. Now your content will be part of the searching and serendipity of platforms such as YouTube. Your content will be as searchable and shareable across Facebook and Twitter as other video and text content is. It's an incredibly powerful way of not just measuring and monetizing, but leveraging and sharing and making available your content across all of the platforms wherever it is your audience wants to consume your content or to share your content. People have wanted this sort of metadata, this sort of ability to tag and segment in their programs, but let's face it, it doesn't happen manually in the studio. So how are we able to do it? Well, we've applied artificial intelligence to look at the words and the concepts. We've linked to external ontologies, so we specifically and consistently understand places, people and things. And above all, because while radio is a spoken document, it's what we consider to be a self-describing document. So actually, in order to bring your audience along with the journey, you have to signpost and marker things. And we can identify that from audio cues such as stingers and beds and commercials and the running time of your programs, all the way down to individual verbal cues from talent and presenters. You're not going to bring on a guest, which we will identify through camera switching or through a new source in the studio, without mentioning their name, which the computer will also be able to pick up. By combining that rich information that we have of contextual data and data from the studio, along with this incredible artificial intelligence and very, very accurate multi-channel transcription, we're able to do things with radio that simply have not been possible before. And we're really excited that as we go into the future, radio across all of these different platforms will become searchable and discoverable. You'll be coming across radio just because you're listening to one moment of radio. We can create links to other moments of radio on that station, from that show, or indeed from different radio stations, TV stations, or any news or entertainment content anywhere in the world. Thank you so much for listening. I hope some of that content at least has helped you to be encouraged by radio's bionic future, how as we take your studios and make them more interactive, more engaging and more intelligent, we can help you source original, compelling content, interact with audiences in entirely new ways, understand, measure and monetize all of the platforms that radio now has available to it, and above all to create compelling original audio content which will appeal whether it's listened to in a linear form, whether people search for it, link to it or discover it online. We look forward to working with you and seeing what incredible content we can create together. Thanks for listening.